When Ellie Morrison's father died, he left behind a box of old cassette tapes, a faded keycard, and a letter that said one thing: don't go back there. But curiosity doesn't take warnings. It takes directions. So one overcast morning, Ellie drove up a forgotten road that wound through the hills of New Mexico and stopped at what looked like an abandoned bunker half buried in frost. The rusted sign outside read, Site 6, Project Whisper. Her father had worked here during the Cold War, part of a classified program no one would admit existed. They said it was about communications, about studying silence. What she didn't know was that silence was the last thing this place had ever produced. Inside, the air was thick and metallic, still holding the scent of machines that hadn't run in 50 years. Her flashlight swept over the walls, peeling paint, broken dials, old hazard signs. Every sound she made seemed to bounce back slower than it should, like the air itself was swallowing the noise. The deeper she went, the colder it became. Somewhere far below, she could feel a faint vibration, steady as a pulse. At the lowest level, the elevator opened into a wide chamber lined with outdated consoles and oxygen tanks. In the center stood a cracked glass isolation booth, its door half open, and from the ceiling hung a single microphone. Across the far wall, faded but still legible, were the words, "Silence is stability." Ellie powered up an old reel-to-reel recorder. Against all odds, the reels turned, and through the static came a voice she recognized instantly, her father's. "Test sequence Delta," he said. "Subject exposure time, 47 hours. Communication ceased at 0300, whisper amplitude stable. For now." Then his tone shifted. "If you're hearing this, Ellie, I'm sorry. We thought we could measure silence to make soldiers immune to fear. But silence isn't empty. It echoes back." The tape warped, twisting with a deep, low hum that pulsed through the floor. The glass booth began to shake, its cracked panels sweating with condensation that formed strange, rippling patterns almost like shapes, like something trying to speak. The vibration climbed higher, pressing against her chest. Ellie lunged for the breaker and slammed it off. The hum stopped. Then came silence, total and absolute. It was so deep it felt like the world had been erased. Her own heartbeat was the only sound she could hear. Then, from behind her, a whisper. Soft, almost kind. "You shouldn't have listened." Ellie spun around. Nothing. The tape deck was off, the lights dead, yet the reels were still turning, slowly, soundlessly. She grabbed her father's notebook and ran. Up the elevator, down the corridor, until she burst into daylight and collapsed beside her truck, gasping for air that finally carried sound again. That night at home, she sat by the fire reading through her father's notes. Acoustic null field resonance. A frequency so low it could cancel all vibration, erasing sound itself. But prolonged exposure caused hallucinations, paranoia, and auditory illusions. The whispers weren't real, he'd written. They were the mind's way of filling the void. The silence drives people to hear what isn't there. One by one, Ellie burned the pages, watching them curl into ash. She stayed awake long after the fire died, listening to the house settle in the dark. For the first time all day, everything was still. Completely still. Then she heard it again, a faint hum, almost beneath thought. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even sound exactly. It was pressure. A vibration, steady and patient, pulsing from somewhere deep beneath her floor. And in that endless quiet, she thought she heard her father's voice again. Carried not by sound, but by the silence itself. "Silence is stability," he whispered. A pause. Then, "But silence remembers." The hum deepened once more. The light in her room flickered. And then, nothing.